What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Payne. Welcome back to another Street Fighter Duel video. That's right, wearing the same shirt as the last one because hell, I'm doing it back to back to back to back. So we have covered the account. Finally, you guys understand what a whale looks like, what a whale gets, and what a whale feels like after spending that amount of money. But I forgot to mention one thing. I get a lot of knowledge from what I do, and I get to pass that on to you guys in what I find to be the most valid method of doing so, and that is testing characters and putting them in rigorous situations and testing them out through endgame stages as well as endgame PvP and events. So I can comfortably at this point in time tell you what the best 5 characters are for pay to win. You can probably guess who they are, but we'll go through them anyways. And then the best 5 characters for free to play. Now, I do want to point out I will make a follow-up video eventually covering every character within every single faction and which one you should be focusing on. But there's a caveat to this game that you need to know right from the get-go. Eventually, you will need to get every single A character to SSS because in order to unlock the levels past a certain point, they are hard locked behind characters becoming that. So unless you plan to go really far in this game, everyone will eventually be triple S anyways. Where your resources are going to count are going to be on vehicles, and they're going to be on their unique weapons, which cost the most amount of money, right? So those are the 2 big reasons why after getting triple S, focusing on the main characters matters most, because those are very limited and expensive resources. Now, without further ado, let's get into the top 5 pay-to-win characters. Now, this is going to be straightforward, and I'm going to break it down for you guys as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a hierarchy mode. So the number 1 is the most important, number 2 is the second most important, number 3, etc. Right? So we're going to do it this way. And I'm going to base them on 3 different criteria: PvE, PvP, and events. Alright, so let's start it off. You can probably guess. I'm going to look at the gallery. I'm not going to look at my roster. I'm going to look straight at the gallery. I'm going to explain to you guys. And I'm going to actually go through each character and explain why I chose these guys as the top 5 characters. It's pretty straightforward, and I'm sure you guys can guess. But these 5 characters here are your top 5 pay-to-win characters. That's right. It's not a coincidence. The hardest divination characters to get are the ones that are going to push you the furthest in the game. This is literally my lineup, guys, to get where I'm at. These are the characters that pushed me to 3740. I have other characters that are fully maxed out, with the exception of 2 characters, and I'll explain to them shortly who they are, but they fall in line with the free-to-play section. These 5 are going to push you the furthest in the game for PvP and PvE. Now, the first one you want to focus on is going to be Bison. Unless some miracle happens and they decide to nerf him, which I don't think they will because they've done enough damage already to the game, Bison plays every role possible. He is a debuffer, he's a buffer, he's a damage dealer, he's a tank, he's a frontline menace. He revives every time he dies and does an AoE damage, and if you cannot kill the rest of his team, he will be the biggest problem you face, whether it's you against him or someone else against yours. He is the absolute pinnacle of cheat code in this game. So Bison should be your number 1 goal. He is going to be the one that pushes you the furthest, and you need the least amount of copies of him to make an impact instantly. So that is going to be the number 1 character to focus on. Now, what makes Bison unique, like I mentioned, outside of the fact that he does weaken, he does soul damage, he does AoE, he has something called Infernal King, which increases skill damage based on every missing HP you have. I mentioned to you guys, he continues to revive. So every time he enters the battle, he instantly does an AoE damage to the characters. Every single time he takes critical damage, which means if he dies, he returns with 40% health and unleashes Return of the Inferno again, and this time instead of dealing 144% damage, he deals 265% damage to all enemies. And this continues on until the rest of the units on your team are dead. He will continue reviving, and he'll continue killing. He is an absolute powerhouse with his skill 3, so he fills the role of ultimate, he fills the role of combo 1 and combo 3. That's really hard to find with a character like this, and not to mention all of his moves cause a lot of damage. So Bison should be your number 1 goal, guys. There is no reason to go for anybody else but him, especially in divination. Number 2, this is going to be a toughie. If you want to advance in every piece of content outside of that past stage 32, I hate to say it, guys, you don't need him. But because we're talking about the top 5 pay to win, this guy will be number 2. I know there's a lot of controversy behind what he costs, and it is an absolute crazy amount. And I agree with you guys, and I hate even mentioning this, but it's got to be mentioned. He is easily the second top character right now in the game, not only for the fact that he can play the same role as Bison to a smaller extent. He does DPS, tanking, buffing, debuffing. He also is an absolute crazy combo dealer because he plays as a backup combo dealer to the rest of the 3 characters you have on your team. So you can actually pull off 4 combos because he goes hand in hand with everybody else. Like, he will do a combo 1, 2, and 3 with somebody else along the way. So making your team allowed to have 2 supports versus just 1 support because you're not doing enough DPS. So Ken fills that role. His ultimate actually gives you resist up by 30%, up to 35% based on all damage. And not to mention, he does a stun with his Dragon Rage Curse. Now, Dragon Rage Curse is very unique because it actually is a debuff that everybody gets. And right in the beginning of battle, and the way it works is both teams have to actually eliminate the amount, 1000% amount of Ken's attack before the curse expires. Now, if the enemy team fails to remove the curse before it expires, all enemies deal 25% less damage for 12 seconds, which is ridiculous. Now, if your team successfully removes it, you guys actually deal 25% more damage, and the level 4 actually reduces the amount you need to reduce of Ken's attack from 1,000 to 800, and actually increases the enemy's teams to 1,000, 1,200. Now, the way this works is it actually removes up to 30% of Gore Magala's Ken's attack every second, and it's true damage. So it is the most unique debuff in the game right now, and it is wild. Now, the last thing here, this charged dragon skill 3, is bonkers. So this has a chance to trigger right automatically after a skill 3 happens. He'll go along with it. He has 2 slashes that he does up to 360% and 20% chance to deal double damage, and then also increases level 3 to deal quadruple damage. So Ken is an absolute powerhouse, and the beauty of him is he's just an extra added combo layer to your current combos that are happening, making Ken one of the most sought out characters and OP characters in the game, definitely number 2. Now, this is where it kind of becomes your choice. There's Gen, and then there is Jerry, but we'll talk about them shortly. But then there's Rose. Now, Rose fills a unique role in this game that not a lot of characters currently do. Elena is great for buffing attack and healing. She's the best healer in the game, hands down. But Rose gives you the most amount of damage slash buffs in the game, and she should be one of your top picks. So I put her number 3. Hesitantly, I put her number 3 only because I find Jerry and Gen are very close, but I would aim for her as number 3. She fills an assist role incredibly, and she fills a main buff role really, really well. So Rose should be up there. Her tarot cards are absolutely bonkers. They do so much things for you. They heal, they give you buffs, they do weakens, they do damage, and it's all soul damage, right? So they all stack up, and after a point, once you get a few stacks, they start doing extra damage on top of that. And not to mention, her actual ult's pretty good. There's control, it does a pushback, and also gives you buffs as well along the way with the cards. And then her skill 3 actually does quite a bit of damage. It does, I think it's an 8-time stack, 8-time attack with 626%. For each stack of weaken on the target, which is great with Bison because he does weaken with his. You do extra damage up to 10%. So it's extremely important, guys, to work on Rose. A lot of people don't like her because of Rose being the character that she is for some odd reason, but she is almost critical to your team going forward. Now, the best 2 damage dealers in the game in terms of events and guild bosses and anything like that are going to be Jury, who has a little bit of a slight edge on Gen for damage, just a slight bit. But I find that Gen overall is the better character. The reason why I say that is because, number 1, he has a mirror image that follows him that can take back damage on your behalf, which is great fighting against people like Sea Viper. But not only that, he has an intense amount of dodge that also sits with him, and his dodge skills are uncanny. And not to mention, his styles, the different styles that he provides, have different unique skills to them. And he also fills the role 1 and 2 combo. Jury fills 1 and 3, and both ults are incredible. But I find him to be a bigger, less squishier version because of that mirror that he has. And not to mention his cars are unique, and I'll cover cars in a whole different situation. But from PvE perspective, for events and bosses, they're both so close, but I would take Gen just a slight bit for survivability. And then lastly, Jury would be my last one because she does do technically the most amount of damage out of all of them, but she is the squishiest one out of all of them. So with that being said, those are the top 5 pay-to-win characters. Now, let's jump in to the top 5 free-to-play characters. Now, there's a lot to choose from here, guys. Okay, a lot. And some of you guys are going to already be aware of some of these characters, so we're going to go through them anyway. So the number one character that you're going to be introduced to fairly early on is going to be ChunLi, but she's not going to be the one you should be focusing on. The first character you should really be trying to be aiming for is Zangief. Now the reason why, and I'll do a full video on stats and explain why speed is so important. He is the fastest character in the game. I believe he sits at, once you get him up to a certain point, he sits at 175 to 179 speed. And what speed does is allows you to attack first, giving you more skill bar based on the first attack. And then he knocks the character down, causing their skill bar to stop. And then he also speeds up your skill bar, making you perform your combo first. That is critical in PvE because eventually you hit teams that can one-shot you, and if you're not able to go first and perform a combo with preferably a stun in there, it's over. You're not going anywhere. So Zangief should be your number one focus as a PvE free-to-play player. Now, what's unique about him is he's one of the only characters that provide a good bleed, so some of the the clan bosses will require that. He also has an incredible passive here that gives him damage reduction, so he can play a role as a tank as well, mostly an off-tank, but he increases speed at the start of the battle for 8 seconds as well, and he gives your teammates additional damage reductions, which is great. And then his skill 2 really is the one that people use most. He does a wild beast spin, which has a chance to stun and interrupt the opponent's combos. So this is where a lot of people play him manually in skill 2. They'll wait for the opponent to perform a first combo, a second combo, and let's say you have someone against Dawson, you'll start your combo quickly and get him to stun, and that'll cancel the combo off. If you've never seen that, I'll show you guys a video on it, and you guys can see how that works. He also gains super armor during the skill at level 3, which doesn't allow him to get knocked down, which is great because then in case you have bad timing, he can still perform the spin and stun opponents. So Zangief should be your number one focus, hands down. There's nobody more critical to him as a free-to-play player if you're not getting the top 5 pay-to-win characters first, right? All right, number 2, it's going to be ChunLi. ChunLi is all about critical hits and all about raising your special bar as fast as possible. She's a speedy character, so it's going to help you with Zangief. She's a complete menace with AoE. She hits everybody all the time, and she does armor break. Armor break is great because it stacks up X amount of times. I believe it's 10, and it will continue to eat up the opponent's defense, making the harder characters and tanks easier to kill. But her big thing is the fact that she provides you with an incredible amount of activation skill. So every time you score a critical, you actually raise your super combo gauge by 100. It happens every 10 seconds, but you'll see how fast that happens. And it increases and it lowers the trigger skills as you go up in level, right? And not to mention, she is she's a powerhouse for events too. She hits hard, she hits fast, and she's easily going to be one of your best characters. So ChunLi should be focus number 2. All right, now number 3. Do not play this end game without her. She is needed for pay-to-win characters. She's needed for free-to-play characters. Elena is incredibly important. I'd say probably as important as Rose in terms of the buff and healing section, even more important for healing. She's one of the only characters that heals as well as she does. She also provides speed. She also provides attack up with her brave dance. Her first skill is a heal, which is extremely important. Obviously, her passive actually gives you increased max HP. Based on her attack by 20%, and that I believe increases as you go, and also increases the defense bonus for Elena's defense as well too. So it provides multiple buffs to you, and then not to mention her Hurricane Tower. If you already have a healer in Rose and you prefer to heal with her, which is not recommended by the way, you do Hurricane Tower here, which gives you actual damage reduction. All right, so really important to use her to her full potential. She will give you the best bang for your buck as a free-to-play player, and she'll actually take you the furthest with your team. So do not go without her, guys. All right, now there are 2 other characters I really want to talk about. Dawson is number 4. Dawson is the best AoE damage dealer you're going to find in the game for your early start. Especially his skill 3, Yoga Flame, does an insane amount of damage, so you definitely want to focus on getting him up. He should be one of your first starting characters as well. If you can't get ChunLi, you can't get Zangief. If you get Dawson, that's to me a good, decent free-to-play account. So he is an absolute I'd say 4th probably wanted character, and then this is up to you where you want to go with this. Sea Viper is great. You get her right from the start. She will take you pretty far, but mid game to about end game she starts to fall off. But she's great at AoE. She's great at assassinating back end characters, and she's really easy to get up. So she's great. Now if you work with Dawson and her, that's a great combo as well too, right? So you can have a really good combination set up with those 2. And then another honorable mention as a tank, is E Honda. A lot of people sleep on E Honda, but he has great skills, good tanking. He has damage sharing, which sort of like keeps the rest of your team alive. You also have a passive that's pretty incredible, which is called Desperation, which triggers every 20 seconds, but he actually doesn't take any damage at all. He's immune to all damage for the first 2 seconds, so which can save you quite a bit on your team. So E Honda is probably one of my favorite tanks. And then lastly, the other tank I would recommend is Zangief. Now Zangief, you're going to notice later on in the team 2-3 sections where he taunts all enemies, which can save your entire team's life, and at the same time he provides an incredible passive, which if he's present, all allies take 25% less flame, thunder, and soul damage. This is gonna make and break your team later on, because you're going to fight a lot of Dawsons, and his Yoga Flame is going to pretty much eat up your whole team alive. So having Zangief on a team with Dawson is a great way to counteract that damage. So those guys are my favorite characters. Now, honorable mentions, of course, Mad Ryu. The fact that he kills himself now is kind of crappy, but he's still an incredible assist and a character and does an insane amount of damage, but you got to be wary, you will lose him fairly quickly. Combat Guile is another really good character. I would highly recommend him. I really wanted to put regular Wind Guile in there for damage because he's incredible. I would honestly work on him if you have him. He will be one of your top DPS easily by far. So next to ChunLi, I probably put him. If you don't have ChunLi, Guile's great to have. She fills a different role, he fills a different role, but again, really good character to have. And then lastly, for events and bosses, Cammy. Cammy does so much damage in events for single target bosses. So she is great for somebody who's looking for a damage dealer for events and guild bosses. Cammy should be your go-to fighter for sure. That's pretty much it, guys. Everyone else is, I mean, decent, but there aren't any standouts. Like, this is a pay-to-win character as well. She's good. I wouldn't really put her in the top 5. I would choose the other 5 over her. But those are my characters, guys. That's who I would focus on if I were you. Hope this helped out. I will go more thorough into each showcase for each character and show you how they work and how to use them properly. But for now, I just want to give you guys my suggestions as being one of the top 10 whales and furthest people in the game. Alright guys, this is Payne. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.